Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides with Schla. And today I have for ya topic on the table for Schla. For moi. No, I could be clueless. No, there was a topic I was going to talk about. There was the axis of creativity and consumption, and how we really are living in a world where it's harder and harder to create, and most consumption is becoming more and more mindless. You know, oftentimes when I do watch a movie or, you know, do something with people, to watch a TV show with the person. I mean, and you even think about like what a TV show or a movie used to be and what it used to represent and how much that's changed. A lot of TV shows now, they're more fictional in nature, or they are, you know, there's not really much meaning or construction. They've had to dial that down. They're trying to appeal to the market. You know, it's had to change. Things have needed to change. They've needed to adapt to what now is the case. You know, this is just the way things have gone. Sad but true. And I'm trying to get through these lights, but this light I'm a little bit skeptical of. Yeah, see, I knew it. It's short. I just got to remember that. It's just too short. Anyways. Yeah, and this is kind of what happens is I think when I was a kid, the general median was still that there was still a good amount of meaning in shows. Just a regular show you would happen to watch would still be pretty packed. Be pretty packed with a lot of complex plot or meaning or these things. It was there and it was present. And in general, we spent more of our time in these creative outlets, I would say, because media itself was usually based on experience or other people and a direct tethering to other people or experiences. So you typically would watch things, but culture and a lot of the aspects of culture would be watching the same movies and have the same kind of general precepts and things going on. You wouldn't really be seeing different content. And I know I've talked about this a million times, but I'm thinking about it in a slightly different way. You know, you think about when you had movie screenings where everybody in a local area would drive their car to watch a movie, or, you know, a movie theater is usually this slightly more localized thing. And you would be around people that presumably you know somewhat or you've seen before. You know, it was much more localized and it was smaller in scope. And a lot of people recognized the same media and it was all kind of uniform. It was pretty memorable too, because you didn't watch movies all day. You just never were really allowed to. We didn't really have freedom. Freedom as a concept is new. It's very new. And so a lot of people may dream of being able to just sit and watch movies all day, but they never actually got to execute it. Nowadays, you do have a certain percentage of people that they do kind of tap out and they ruin their sleep and they watch movies all day or just like fool around all day. I think I was a part of this for a time. And well, I think I was always more mindful because even when I wasn't working, it wasn't like I was just fooling around the entire time. You know, I still would have these thoughts. I still had a decent amount of thoughts. And I think mindfulness is the correct adjective because I try to think about things in a more memorable way, not in a way that's like, you know, too crazy. Not in a way that's too crazy. Keeping things tame, keeping things chill. You know, this is important. It's an important distinction to make. But what I'm meaning is there is a percentage of people that experiences this. I sort of did. And, you know, really what happens is like, you know, if you just spend all day watching TV shows, it's not meaningful. It's just too much. It's too crazy. And so, interestingly enough, even though I had the amount of free time I did, I actually didn't watch all that many movies or TV shows. There were a lot that I hadn't had seen yet and that I still haven't ended up seeing because it's true. I mean, there's a lot to watch. The thing is, though, with a lower quantity and longer run times and longer concepts, it creates more coherent memories. Because I spent a lot of time not doing anything, by modern standards, it seems terrible. But what does it lead me to be able to do? Well, I can tell a coherent story because ultimately my life was not very busy. It was not very stressful. It was not very involved with the typical hustle and bustle that most people have to go through. I was able to put a lot of effort into trying to socialize and achieve it in a lot of ways. Achieve what I was trying to socialize. And again, my whole time I've always been frustrated by it because I wish I started working sooner, or I wish this or that. But I think now I realize how much it matters that I had that time and that space, and I used it in that way. You know, I thought there was something wrong with me that I couldn't watch shows because it seemed like everybody else is always playing a game or they're always consuming content. And that's something that I can't do. You know, I couldn't just sit and focus on a show. Like, if I were to focus on a show, it would have to be with a person. It would have to be significant. It would have to be worth watching. I think this is the whole problem. Except it wasn't a problem. I would get so fixated on optimal and constant joy and constant pleasure and trying to like really juice out so much dopamine, which I did. But maybe it's fine. Maybe it's fine to just not do anything and to not get anything done. Maybe that's completely fine if nobody was able to call or nobody was able to text, and to just have a moment to breathe. I didn't think like this. I haven't really thought like this in a while because my brain and my mind and my body has been so fixated on hedonism and maximizing. And so I should have started working sooner. I should have done this or that. I should try to always have somebody to talk to. But why? What is it really? What am I really chasing after? What am I really getting? Why would it be a problem if everybody's busy and I don't get the dopamine and I just have a boring night? I feel like we think these things are miserable nowadays. We think that having a boring night, a night where no friends are around, you're not going out, nothing's necessarily going your way, and you feel miserable and you just have to do TikTok just to get through the time until somebody's available. We lose the ability to wait. We've gotten so impatient. I've gotten so impatient in the pursuit of maximizing this dopamine, which we achieve and we do maximize, and I have, but then in contrast, it makes us feel pretty miserable when we're not in that state. But for what? Really? Does it make any sense? Does any of this make any sense? It's just like, it's just not making sense. Why do we do this? Why have I done this? Because I don't even think everybody does. Because I think most people are not even as fixated on what's optimal. They just do what they want, but they kind of get stuck into what I would say like a subconscious optimal loop is like kind of what I described, where somebody can just tap out and go into TikTok and then they're just gone for a couple hours, and that's technically optimal. It's technically optimal. But, in the long run, it obviously has consequences. It's not like it's truly optimal. I think it's just technically optimal. It's the path of least resistance. But, the path of least resistance typically can have longer term problems. And that is one of them. I mean, interacting with a platform that does not stimulate the creative or artistic side of the human brain is dangerous, especially when you do it for long periods of time, say years. Years go by and you've sunk in so many hours into these different platforms and you don't really have any creative thing to show for it, and you're more miserable. And again, you need all the things to be right just to get that juice of dopamine. It gets so difficult. But really, what's wrong with not doing anything? What's wrong with that? Why do we have to be so productive and perfect? Being lazy, I think, is a complicated thing to talk about because there's a huge difference between true relaxation and what people call relaxing or being lazy. There's a huge difference between actually just sitting there and relaxing versus playing a video game or scrolling. It's different. It's not, those are two different things. Both lazy, but one is far different from the other. But both are kind of viewed at in the same light. Like some people, I think, instinctively would think, well, if you're just going to lounge around on the couch, why shouldn't you just go on TikTok? Because at least that's doing something. It's doing a lot, actually. You're experiencing so much. The less you do will automatically make it so that what you do is more meaningful. Since I don't get food out very often, whenever it happens for a special event or a party, it feels special. It's memorable in my mind. If I got a pizza every single day, I would probably be happier, because who wouldn't? I could do that. Like, that's not even out of the question. I could easily add to this routine stopping by a pizza place every day on the way home from work. I could get into a system where it's like, before I leave, I call ahead for pickup, and I get it every single day. And I could eat it, and I'd be happy. I'd be happier, But would it eventually lose its luster? Because right now, it seems so special to go pick up a pizza. It's special because it's rare. When I reflect on the TV shows and movies I've watched, this is why I'm able to have dialogues about them. This is why I'm able to talk. It's actually because I didn't do anything. When I was in school, I did the bare minimum. This is why I'm able to generate so many words. It's because I wasn't consuming. I didn't really consume very much for a long time. It actually converted, and I've talked about this before, but I haven't talked about it in the way that I have. I changed from liking video games to liking music. And the truth is, that is a much less stimulating thing. It's true. It just is. It's still stimulating, of course, but a video game is more stimulating than just listening to music. And a lot of times, that would just be what I did. Like, I would just listen to music. Now, of course, nowadays we do a lot of multitasking. We listen to music while we do other stuff. But we lose sight of each moment. We lose sight because something is always clouding the other thing. Something is always needing to be fixed or optimized. Instead of doing this thing with headphones, we do it without headphones. I mean, we can't do it without it. Like, we have to have the headphones in because it's stronger. It's more dopamine. Always have to have music playing. But I had a lot more of, like, just mindful. Like, when I was first trying to, like, quit video games, I would just walk around with headphones on. That's just what I did. Like, it wasn't, I didn't listen to music while doing other things. Like, a lot of that stuff comes later. Obviously now as I've gotten older and just the nature of things, these things have changed. But I think it's really time I should start to think about these things again, because in a lot of ways, I was really ahead. Like, I really was very ahead of the game as a teenager, and I've lost my touch. I've lost my way. I thought about a lot of this stuff, but for some reason I haven't followed it or haven't had the will or the desire or the motivation to really do anything about it. I can't say I'm entirely sure why, because I was on a good track. But I guess the allure of stimulation or whatever it is was always there. And I've kind of went along with everyone else to an extent, but I still think relatively speaking, I'm not as far gone as some people. But in some ways, I'm only able to speak on these things because I've done them myself. I don't think I'm as extreme or as mindless. I think mindful is just such a good word to describe it. And so that's why, is there really a problem that I didn't do anything? Is that really bad for the brain to think? Maybe. Maybe there are some problems as a result of my lack of action. But it's not like it's not like I really wasn't using my brain. Like I was. I was using my brain. I wasn't just watching completely junk videos all the time. I'd think, I'd have these kind of like thoughts with myself. It's a shame I wasn't recording sooner, but it wasn't like it was empty up there. Because I know they say that, like, if you don't do stuff, if you don't use your brain, like, you lose it. And that's potentially true, but again, what kind of relaxing are we talking about? That's always the question. What kind of relaxing? What kind of relaxing? Because there's so many, some are beneficial, some aren't. And I think it's something I just don't think about anymore as I've been working and I've been achieving and I've been getting these material things that I've always wanted. A super great computer. I've always wanted the best microphone setup that I've always wanted. I mean, we're basically there where it's like all the stuff I have is just amazing. We're there. I don't know what much more I need. And does it really matter? Like, it feels better, it feels stronger to go to work more hours, have extra money. And then, I can spend a little more, obviously, because of my overtime. It motivates me. And it's good because, things are tight these days. But at the same time, would I be happier if I didn't have to work as much? Maybe. Maybe this hasn't really been all that good for me. It's something that keeps crossing my mind. You know, the long hours, the long days. It's rough. But I think ultimately I just have a feeling about it, I guess, that there's a scarcity and I want to be productive. I want to work. I want to juice out the numbers. But is this really how I always was? Or was something conditioned me at some point to feel this way? And I'm trying to look back as to who am I really? What do I really want to do? Why should I care about things being optimal? There has to be a freedom in just being able to relax. And this doesn't mean that you can avoid there is certain things to be stressed about, but still it ends up being like, well, what can you do about it? And if you can't, I don't know. But it's so unique because it's something I'm just thinking of now. Why is it a problem to not do anything? Why is it a problem to have a lonely night? In my case, now maybe other people aren't really fazed by it. I know for me, it's because I'm just thinking about juicing out more pleasure. And I want every night to be meaningful. But what if this was what was creating my meaning? The fact that I've had spotty friendships and they've gone long periods of time where I haven't really been talking to anybody. What if that's created the meaning? It's helped keep the memories there. People who actively have friends or have new friends or have lots of friends. What good does it do? Is it just an addiction like anything else? And I know social interactions are needed for optimal health. But I don't really think it has to be all that much. I'm not sure. Or just like the ways that it's needed are not necessarily crazy. It's just our environments make it so difficult because the environment, it's all disorganized. It's all people on all different schedules and it's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still kind of blown away by that I just never I've been so obsessive and fixated on trying to maximize. But what if you maximize by minimizing? Like what if things would have been more significant if I actually voluntarily talked to people less? What if it increases significance? And that's the reason why I have the words that I do and the meaning that I have and the way I'm able to say things and the how I'm able to say things. It's because of the inactivity. It's because of the moments where I had to think. It's not because of the moments where I was laughing or having fun. I remember some of them, but you remember the dark moments or you remember the confusing ones. You remember your mistakes, but sometimes it's hard to remember the other stuff. But yeah, mindfulness is really and it's about not rushing. And that's technically the maximizing. But it's not visible. It's not easy to be credited for something like that. It's a silent recognition. Even my diligence to this show, it's quiet, it's unedited. A lot of, it is what it is. I just feel like because that's been my whole reference point this whole time is maximizing and perfecting and optimizing. And I've been reflecting more on that recently. But at what end? For what reason? Yeah, it's just, and even like, what if when I didn't do car rides, like at this point, even car rides with Schla, like, what if I did just consciously drive without the recording or do like silent recordings where maybe the mic's running, but there isn't really an expectation to talk? I mean, would this actually create better stuff? I see how it's this whole time I've just been thinking about pushing and pumping, but what is there really, what should I really be doing? Maybe that would be fine to just drive in silence because it starts to become the same as everything else, right? It's good. It's still something I should do, obviously, but maybe there would be something unique to be gained from a silent car ride. Quiet. We slip into things because they're easier. Do listening to music while doing this, it's easier. It makes it easier to do. And then we do it, and then it eventually normalizes. And then now it's just the same, right? So it's like what are we accomplishing? Maybe you have to just do stuff consciously. Maybe only sometimes listen to the music and sometimes not. That kind of sounds like it makes sense. Well, I think that it's been schla, and now it's time to buy schla. So, see you schla.